Good morning and welcome to South Arts Informational Webinar for the Cross-Sector Impact Grants. Next slide. So before I begin, I want to let you know that you can enable the live transcription feature in this webinar, and also this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website by Friday. Today's webinar will focus on the letter of interest process. I will begin with brief staff introductions, then I'll provide an overview of the program before digging into the program requirements. We will definitely have time at the end to answer many of your questions. Just be sure to use the Q&A box to ask your questions, and we'll try to get to every single question today. Finally, I want to mention that although we do offer this opportunity for previous grantees to apply for continued support, this webinar really focuses on the LOI process for new applicants or applicants that have not previously received a cross-sector impact grant. Next. I'm Nikki Estes, and I'm the Director of Presenting and Touring at South Arts. I manage several grant programs, including the Cross-Sector Impact Grants. I'm joined today by our Communications Director, Ivan Shustak, who is working behind the scene to manage the technical needs of this webinar. Ivan will also facilitate the Q&A session towards the end. Ivan, do you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box and we will get to them at the end. Thank you.
Thanks, Ivan. Next slide. So first, I would like to share a little bit more about South Arts, our mission, goals, and programming. South Arts' mission is advancing Southern vitality through the arts. Our work and purpose are designed to address the issues important to our Southern region and to link the South with the nation and the world through the arts. As a regional arts organization, we partner with the National Endowment for the Arts and the state arts agencies in the South to deliver services and provide programming. Most of our programs operate within our 9-state region, but we also have programs that reach beyond these states to serve the national arts community. We offer artist grants and fellowships, community and organization grants, special initiatives, and programming in film and traditional arts. I encourage you to visit our website to learn more about our work. So we are excited to offer the Cross-Sector Impact Grant for a 5th year, and I want to spend a few minutes talking about the what and why for this program. This program is designed to support partnerships between the arts and non-arts sector in creating or developing programs that address the challenges and strengths of our communities. The program brings together the arts and community or social issues. For example, eligible projects may include programs that address arts and aging, arts and equity, arts and youth nutrition, or arts and homelessness. And when I say the arts, I mean all art forms, from performing arts to the media arts. For projects new to this program, we encourage applications for new partnerships. However, partnerships or projects that deepen or expand existing projects or partnerships are also eligible to apply. Applicants are encouraged to think expansively about opportunities for projects and partnerships, to think about creative and varied possibilities and solutions. This program is not designed to support ongoing educational programs, but rather to help applicants leverage their partnerships. Programs which deliver an arts experience to a constituency are not what this program is really for. Arts education or educational programs are not eligible. For example, an after-school program that provides art classes to students is not a good fit for this program. In a moment, I'll talk a little bit more about what is a good fit. I do want to emphasize that for partnerships between the two sectors, we are looking for a true partnership, not just delivering or providing a service or program for another organization's constituency, but truly working together, developing the program together, and having some shared goals as well as shared risk. So what would be a good fit for this program? I would like to share how one of our previous grantees used the arts to address homelessness. The arts partner worked with the homeless shelter to provide business skill training and arts training for homeless men. The participants were paid throughout their training at art making while receiving health and human services. The work that was created was sold, and any profit invested back into the program to expand its reach. The partners involved community organizations to host pop-up exhibitions where community and residents could speak with the participants. The partners also worked with businesses and residents in the initial project design. The shelter provided the space for production, and the arts partner provided training artists. The project is addressing homelessness by providing skills training and jobs in the arts. Next. So why did we create this program? We wanted to be more strategic and impactful with our grant dollars. This program aligns closely with two of our strategic goals: connecting artists and arts professionals in the South to resources that will increase opportunities for success within and outside the region, and advancing impactful arts-based programs that recognize and address trends and the evolving needs of a wide range of communities in the South. We recognize that partnerships and working across sectors can bring new opportunity, increase effectiveness, and greater depth to projects. Also, we know that projects and artists play a vital role in addressing challenges and harnessing the strength of our communities. In addition, rapid change, or the call for change, is happening in communities around this country and throughout the South. So this has only increased our need for programs like this, which allow us to strengthen our communities using the arts as a tool. Before I review the application and LOI timeline, I want to acknowledge that this is a very competitive process. Last year, we received 145 LOIs, and we invited 20 of these new applicants to submit full applications. We funded 16. This included 11 new grantees and 5 previous grantees. These grants totaled almost $200,000. This year, we anticipate funding about 10 new applicants and approximately 5 previous grantees. For projects new to this program, we will use a 2-step application process to help lower the barrier for entry and reduce the burden on potential applicants by initially requiring a letter of interest. Let's review the timeline. The letter of interest is due on August 1st. You'll receive notification on August 28th whether you are invited to submit a full application, and if so, that full application is due October 2nd. You will be notified if your grant was funded in mid-November, and the project takes place between January 1st of 2024 through June 30th of 2025. After this webinar, this webinar will focus on the letter of interest stage. If you are a current or previous grantee, you only need to submit a full application, and we will notify you when it's available. For those invited to submit a full application, you will receive instructions by August 28th. Next slide. For this partnership program, we are looking for 2 primary partners, which can include organizations or artists. This does not mean that you cannot have additional individuals or organizations involved, but you are limited to 2 primary partners. These 2 partners must include one from the arts sector and one from the non-arts sector. The non-arts partner must be an organization. For example, a nonprofit arts organization can partner with a nonprofit organization or unit of government from the non-arts sector. Or an individual artist can partner with a for-profit organization, a nonprofit organization or unit of government from the non-art sector. So I want to say that again, just so it's clear. An individual artist can partner with a nonprofit organization or unit of government from the non-art sector. Please know that an artist or arts organization without a non-arts partner is not eligible. Also, partnerships between different university departments are not eligible. I do want to mention again that individuals or organizations, in addition to the 2 primary partners, can be involved in the project's implementation, but no grant funds may be given to these additional individuals or organizations. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, all art forms are eligible for the cross-sector impact grants. This includes, but is not limited to, performing arts, literary arts, visual arts, film or media, traditional or folk arts, as well as multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary art forms. The arts partner must represent 1 or more of these artistic disciplines. Next slide. The eligible areas for community impact include, but are not limited to these: education, the environment, health and human services, infrastructure, and social justice. The non-arts partner should represent the community impact area of the project. I want to mention an incredible resource on the Americans for the Arts website. If you want to see examples of how the arts intersect the other sectors or better understand cross-sector collaboration, this resource is highly recommended and can be accessed from our website. Next slide. Now let's take a look at a few eligibility criteria. All the partners must be located or reside within South Art's 9-state region, which includes Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, the Carolinas, and Tennessee. Applicants must be in good standing with South Arts, meaning that there are no outstanding reports, and previous grantees have complied with the grant requirements. Although the LOI in the application includes 2 primary partners, only one must be a tax-exempt 501c3, a unit of local or state government, or a federally recognized tribal community. This partner must also have a unique entity identifier. The UEI is a free number given by the federal government and is required since we regrant federal dollars. This is a fairly new requirement, and I encourage everyone to get registered so that you can have this number in time for the application deadline, should you be invited to apply. The UEI will be required with your application submission, and there are no exceptions. You can find additional information and instructions on our website, and I want to discourage you from using any paid service to get your UEI. This is a free service, but it may take some time. Finally, as I mentioned, we do regrant federal grant dollars for this program, and so federal agencies or divisions of federal government are not eligible for the cross-sector impact grant program. Next slide. So what's required for your project? Your project must include a minimum of 2 public-facing events. These events may be virtual or in person. What we mean by public-facing is that one event must be a public presentation that provides individuals with an arts experience or encounter. This can be an exhibition, a screening, or any other activity. It could be free or a ticketed event, but it must be marketed and open to anyone who wishes to attend. The second activity can include an additional activity that was just described, or an activity that provides greater context or deeper understanding of the arts experience, the art form, the artistic process, or the community issue. This activity can be for a targeted audience or group of participants such as students, a business group, artists, patients, healthcare providers, or just some examples. Also, please remember that these are minimums, not maximums. We welcome projects that include more than 2 community engagement events. Also important is accessibility. Projects must be accessible to anyone who wants to participate. As part of our diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility work, South Arts prioritizes accessibility. You are required to ensure physical and programmatic access for individuals with disabilities. This is a requirement for federal funding and a civil rights issue. We hope that applicants understand the diverse needs of individuals with disabilities, so we encourage you to think not only about physical and mobility, but also vision, hearing, and cognitive disabilities. Next slide. Now let's turn our attention to the budget. What is allowed and what is required? The minimum request is $5,000 and the maximum request is $15,000 for new applicants. This grant requires a 1-to-2 match. That means that for every South Arts grant dollar, you must match the grant by 50 cents. So for example, a $5,000 grant means a $2,500 match. The match must include cash and can include in-kind contributions up to 50%. For example, the $2,500 match that I just mentioned can be $1,250 cash and $1,250 in-kind contributions. In-kind contributions are goods or services that have a specific value, but that have been provided in lieu of cash. So for example, a local art supply store may be a supporter and provide paint for your project at no cost. You can consider the cost of the paint as the in-kind contribution. Like in the past, we anticipate fully funding projects. This means that we want you to be realistic about your budget and your grant request. We also want to make sure that you know about your cash match requirement. So again, I want to share another example. A $15,000 grant or request means that you must match the grant with $7,500. This could mean that your project totals $22,500. So this is not a program for you to over ask what you really need. We want you to be realistic about your project expenses. Now let's talk about expenses. Next slide. So please take a look here and on our website for eligible cash expenses that can be supported by this grant. This listing includes some examples, but is not complete. So if you have a question, please ask. Your expenses for this project must directly relate to the project. Ineligible cash expenses are not negotiable. These include overhead expenses, indirect expenses, and staff time. Please know that this grant does not support permanent public art. It does support temporary public art. South Arts defines temporary public art projects as those designed to be exhibited or shown for less than 1 year. Permanent art projects are not eligible because capital expenses are not eligible for this grant program. And speaking of art creation, I want to mention that these projects are not intended for the creation of new work as the central element of the project. However, work that is created as a secondary outcome or where community participants are highly involved in the creative process is acceptable. When developing your budget, I want to encourage you to ensure that there is consistency between the budget form and your narrative. They should work together and support each other. Please know that we understand that this is a preliminary budget and that changes may be necessary with a full application submission. Next slide. Your LOI will be reviewed with this criteria in mind: project design, artistic quality, community involvement, and capacity. We will be evaluating LOIs on their potential to most closely address these 4 areas. These are the same criteria that will be used for full applications as well. So I know there's a lot of information on this slide and that you may not be able to read it, but this information is also on our website, and I hope that you will review it as it will help you prepare your LOI and application. Priority will be given to projects taking place in small communities, rural areas, which are typically areas that are isolated geographically and have a population under 50,000 people. We'll also prioritize isolated communities, which are communities that are isolated due to socioeconomic factors, education gaps, or lack of infrastructure. In addition, I previously mentioned our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. We have prioritized this commitment to ensure that Black, Indigenous, and people of color-led organizations, LGBTQIA+-led organizations, or organizations representing persons with disabilities are represented as both applicants and grantees. We encourage applications for projects that engage a broad spectrum of diversity. Finally, I do want to mention that we want to see deep community engagement and involvement in these projects. So please keep all this in mind when preparing your LOI and application. Next slide. We want to offer some thoughts about your readiness to apply. These are not additional funding criteria. These are simply questions meant to help you think through your partnership. So before you apply, please consider these questions. Do the partners have a history of successfully working together or with others? Have the two partners worked together in the past, or are they working together now? Is the separation of responsibilities and authority between the two partners established and agreed upon, including the financial responsibilities? And do the partners have complementary strengths and resources such that this partnership is necessary for the success of the project? Next slide. Now we'll look at what you need to do next if you want to move forward with the letter of interest. You must use our new online system, which is Salesforce, to submit your LOI and the required information by 11:59 Eastern on August 1st. Please remember that this is an Eastern time deadline, and unfortunately, we cannot accept late or incomplete LOIs. So please do not wait until the last minute to submit your LOI. And since this is a new grant portal for us and probably for you, I would highly encourage you to visit the site early in order to properly prepare. Beginning your LOI early also means that you are able to get the staff assistance that you need. You will need to address several questions in the narrative, which makes up about 2 pages of text. These questions will focus on the area of community or social impact that you're trying to influence, and how the artistic component of the project will be effective in addressing it. You'll also need to address the 2 partners and the main activities for the project, including a timeline. Of course, you'll need to submit a preliminary budget, and we have a template for you to use. And we'll ask for demographic and basic partner information for each of the 2 partners. You can find the specific questions for the narrative on our website and in the grant portal. You'll also need to include the preliminary budget, as I mentioned, using the template that we provide. Finally, we will ask for basic demographic information for each partner. And please note that this demographic information is solely for informational purposes only and is not used in the review process. Next slide. You can access the new grant management system, Salesforce, from the cross-sector impact page. And if you have not yet used the new system, you will be required to create a new account. Information entered in the LOI will transfer to the full application should you be invited to submit a full application. There are several sections to the LOI process, and I highly encourage you to save your work often. Please know that advancing from one section to the next does not save your work. Only the save button will do that. So please use the save button at the bottom of each section. Next. The LOI process includes information on the partner 1, information on partner 2, project details, and the project budget. When you submit your LOI, you will receive an email that serves as confirmation that we have received your LOI. If you do not receive an email, please check your spam folder and also go back to the system to make sure your application or LOI has been submitted. Please be aware that you will not be able to see a copy of your LOI after submission. Next. To wrap up, I have just a few more suggestions, reminders, and what to expect next. You can check the website for updates along with answered questions in the FAQs and additional materials to assist you, such as this recording. Please note that we are not able to review LOIs, but we can answer questions that you may have. A limited number of those submitting LOIs will be invited to submit a full application. You will receive an email by August 28th, letting you know whether or not you're being invited to the next phase. Full applications are due approximately 5 weeks later on October 2nd at 11:59 Eastern. And again, please remember that late or incomplete applications will not be accepted and that a UEI number is required at the time of the application. Also, you will be invited to one-on-one calls with me to discuss your project and application in early September. And finally, applicants will be notified in mid-November about funding. All grantees will be required to provide access at all grant-supported activities. You will also need to acknowledge South Arts and the National Endowment for the Arts and write your federal legislators. And you'll be required to complete a final report addressing the project outcomes, providing partner, participant, and activity details, and finalizing your project expenses. Next. So let's take the next 30 minutes to review questions and answer them. If you have a question, please use the Q&A. Ivan, if you will read the Q&A and we'll get through as many as possible.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So we have a question that is, do these need to be new partnerships? i.e., is it okay to apply for funding a partnership that has already been seeded but never received third-party support?
Sure. So this program does support new partnerships and existing partnerships.
We have another question. If we received a cross-sector impact grant in previous years, can we apply with a new project for this cycle? And if yes, what would the award limit be for that circumstance?
Okay, so as long as you have not received 3 cross-sector impact grants, 3 years of funding, you can apply for this next cycle. What we ask of returning grantees is that you expand on your existing project. So what we want to see is not an application from a previous grantee for a new project, but we want to expand on your existing project. And we will look for reasoning why you would want to expand that project. So we're looking for you to have the same 2 partners and to go deeper than you were able to do in the first cycle of funding. And you will be invited around the same timeline, August 28th, to let you know when you can apply for continuing support of a previous project.
We have a question. Can more than one letter of interest be submitted for different projects and partnerships?
No, they cannot. So neither partner on an LOI can be a partner on a different LOI. So partnerships are limited to 1 LOI.
If you submitted a letter in the past but were not funded, should you submit another letter of interest?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, this program is highly competitive. And what that means is that there are many wonderful projects being designed in the South that certainly meet the program goals. We simply don't have the resources to support all of those. So I would say yes, just because you were not successful in a previous cycle does not mean that you cannot be successful in this cycle.
We have a question about the nature of partners. This person understands that an artist can partner with a non-arts organization, but can an artist partner with an arts organization if they are doing cross-sector work?
No. So the artist must partner with an organization in the non-art sector.
Somebody's asking for clarification of what a unit of government might be. For example, could that be a partnership with the Department of the State of Florida?
Yes, it could. So a unit of government can be a state government organization. It could possibly be a university or college. So there are many different examples of what that might be. And if you have that example that I just read, certainly would meet what we define as a government entity.
Okay. We have a follow-up to the non-arts organization question from earlier. Can the nonprofit that is a non-arts organization have an arts program even if the overall mission of the nonprofit is not arts related?
It's a great question. So if the core of your work and your mission is not arts related, we would consider you a non-arts partner. I will say that the intent of this, so if your arts programming is large, is a large portion of what you do, we might consider you an arts partner. And also just keep in mind the intent of this program. It really is to support cross-sector collaboration. But again, if your arts programming is a small portion of what you do as an organization overall, then we would consider you a non-arts partner. And I would encourage you, if you have concerns about that, to give me a call or send me an email if you want to just be extra certain that you qualify.
We have somebody asking for clarification. Do I understand correctly that arts education is not a good fit for this program?
That is correct.
Is it acceptable for our arts nonprofit partner to be multidisciplinary, for example, working in visual, digital, craft, dance, theater, improv, etc.?
Absolutely.
Would a partnership between two nonprofit, non-arts organizations be eligible if one of the nonprofits has an arts program? For example, a nonprofit partners with a nonprofit after-school program to offer art programs in-house.
No, and this is kind of the opposite of a question we had maybe 3 questions ago. So we are looking for a partnership with a non-arts partner that is truly a non-arts organization and an arts partner. So we are requiring those 2 things. And if read the question again, Ivan, I want to make sure I answer correctly.
Sure, let me get back to it. Would a partnership between 2 nonprofit, non-arts organizations be eligible if one of the nonprofits has an arts program already? For example, a nonprofit organization partners with a nonprofit after-school program to offer programs in-house.
Okay, so yes, as I was losing my train of thought. So again, it has to be a non-arts partner and an arts partner. And if one of them has a work in another area, we would consider what their primary organization work is about. So the answer to that question is that example would not be an eligible partnership for this program.
Can you define good standing with South Arts? Does our organization to be registered or a member of South Arts?
So the great news is that there's no real membership to being South Arts. Any arts organization or artist within our 9-state region may be eligible for some or many of our programs. Good standing means that you do not, if you've been a past grantee, that you have complied with the grant requirements and that you do not have any outstanding final reports due. So if you are a previous grantee and you have not submitted your final reports in time, then you will not be eligible to submit an LOI. Also, if you are a returning cross-sector impact grantee and you want to apply for future funding, please know that your current project, if you're in the current cycle, has to be completed before January 1st in order to apply for this grant program, which starts January 1st. So there's no overlapping of South Arts support, and your project from a previous grant must be complete for the cross-sector impact last cycle before you can apply to this current one.
We have a question, can an organization apply if they've been awarded another grant from South Arts? For example, my organization has been awarded a presentation grant for a program occurring this October.
Yes, you can still apply.
And just to clarify, Nikki, would I be correct in understanding that funds from that presentation grant cannot be utilized as a match towards this grant program?
That's correct. So you cannot use funds from any current South Arts grant to match any components of a cross-sector impact grant. In addition, your match for cross-sector cannot include any other federal funds because, as I mentioned earlier, this grant is supported by federal funds. And so other federal funds cannot be used as part of your match either.
We have a similar question that just kind of builds on that slightly. Did I understand correctly that the non-arts organization cannot receive any other federal funding, or is it only federal funding for this project that the organization cannot receive?
Only federal funding for this project as part of the match. So I don't want to confuse everyone. So there are, with the federal funds, you cannot use them as part of your match, but if there are components of this project that are not being supported by South Arts funds, they can be supported with other federal funds. So in the larger picture, if this is a large scale project or even a small scale project, and only certain components of this project are being supported by the South Arts funds, and we'll know that based on the budget that you submit, and certain components are funded by federal funds and not supported by South Arts funds, that is allowed, but they cannot overlap at all.
Somebody is saying, we are partnering with a national park. Would they be eligible for this grant?
If it is a state park based in our region and in your state, then yes.
What about a national park?
Depends on where it's located.
Okay. Somebody's wondering if South Arts can provide a list of potential nonprofit partners that individual artists like themselves can petition or work with.
We actually do not have a list. And what I would encourage you to do is, and what we want to see in this project is that you are working with organizations, partners, artists, community members right there in your community. And so this is a program that we want to see high, in-depth, engaged communities. And so your local community is your best resource. And that's who we want to really see as your partners. So unfortunately, that means that you will have to determine who are the best partners in your community to work with for the issue that you're trying to address.
We did have a follow-up from the national park question. The national park is located in Florida, but I would recommend that you contact Nikki offline because there is a question about federal funding that should probably be addressed, and that's getting really into a very narrow niche for this. So I would recommend please contacting Nikki to discuss some of the content.
Thank you.
We have a question asking if staff salaries are eligible or not eligible expenses for this program.
So staff salaries that are diverted to this project can be used as part of the in-kind contributions. They cannot be used as part of the match, the cash match, or the cash expenses. However, I want to say that contracted personnel for this project that are not part of salary positions that any organization can be used as eligible cash expenses. So if you have to hire a project manager or a consultant for this project that is outside of any of the partnering organizations, that is an eligible cash expense.
We have somebody asking if the required cash match of the grant can be federal funds that have been received from the state and or local level. for example, if they're receiving a re-grant from a local funder that received federal funds, can they use those locally sourced federal funds as part of this grant match?
Federal funds of any sort cannot be used as part of the match. So if I'm understanding correctly, for example, if your state arts agency or an organization received federal funds and they are re-granting those federal funds to you, so the funds aren't directly from the federal government, just as they wouldn't be if you receive funds from South Arts, that still means that they're federal funds and that cannot be used as a match.
Somebody is wondering if you can elaborate on access mapping.
So what that means is if you are engaging the community and trying to find the stakeholders, have everyone's voice, see where the resources are that you're coming together to collect that information and really learn what are the resources in your community, the assets in your community that could be used for this project to implement them or to design them.
We have a question asking if nonprofits that are working with a fiscal agent might be eligible.
Unfortunately, no, we do not accept fiscal agents for this program.
We have a question from an organization returning. Can you confirm whether or not a letter of interest is required or not for returning applicants?
Returning applicants or returning grantees?
So, returning grantees.
Returning grantees do not need to submit an LOI. Returning grantees, as long as they haven't received 3 years of funding from South Arts, will be invited to submit a full application. So the reason why we don't ask for an LOI for returning grantees is because you will be submitting a full application to continue the project or expand the project that was previously funded. So we already have a sense of what the project, who the project partners are, who you're engaging, the intent of the project and the community engagement areas or issues. So that's why it's not needed. And again, we're trying to lower barriers for applicants and LOI applicants.
We have a handful of questions asking for both additional examples of potential projects that might be funded or samples of letters of interest that people can review to see what might be competitive.
We don't have sample letters of interest. What I would say to keep in mind and what will make a project stronger, in my opinion, is that you keep in mind that the creation of art is not the primary focus of this program. The primary focus of this program is to use the arts as a tool or resource addressing a community need or issue. So what also makes it a strong project is if the partnership between the two partners makes the most sense, if they both bring strengths and resources to the table that makes a partnership seem necessary, and if the community is involved in a deep way, not only as participants, but as project planners and individuals implementing the project. So community engagement is really a thread throughout the project, from the beginning of the design to the middle of the execution, and even at the end for evaluation. So I think what many applicants struggle with is really being able to pinpoint how the arts are used in addressing a community issue. And the lack of arts is not the community issue that we're trying to solve here. We're trying to help move the needle on. We're trying to address issues, really, I would say, outside of the arts. And you're using the arts as a tool to help with that community challenge, need, or issue.
I would also recommend that people who want to see previous successful applicants visit the grant and fellowships recipients section of our website. It is available in the menu. and you can filter and sort to see all of the previous cross-sector impact grant recipients, and review what they have done, what they proposed, and see some other types of examples of successful programs.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ivan. And also, I mentioned earlier in the webinar that the Americans for the Arts has a great tool that talks about cross-sector collaboration in a very broad sense. And that certainly provides some real-world examples of projects. And that link to that resource is on our cross-sector impact webpage. So you might want to also take a look at that.
We have a question. Should a project that touches all community impact requirements already be launched but has potential to grow and become sustainable with this grant and identified partner? Is this eligible, or does it have to be a new project?
It does not have to be a new project, even though that is what we're strongly encouraging. We also want to acknowledge that there are partnerships happening in our region. And so if this is a partnership that you've had for many years, I would say that what might be important to point out is why you're continuing this partnership, how you're making change in the community, and why the partnership needs to go even further. And that what should be kind of pulled out in the LOI detail.
Somebody is wondering if one applicant has to be a 501c3, or would a 501c6 qualify?
One applicant has to be 501c3. And that applicant, just to go a little bit more in detail, the partner that has the 501c3, if both of them don't, it certainly could be the case. One of the 501c3 partners will be the designated primary partner that will receive the grant funds from us, and that partner will distribute the funds to either partner 2 or any other individuals that are part of the project that were included in your budget.
Somebody is asking a question that we sort of touched on earlier, but I think there's an important distinction. Would a government agency be eligible to partner with a nonprofit cultural organization? And I'm putting an emphasis on the word cultural because to me that stands out as potentially different than arts.
Right. So this might be one that we have to talk offline because I'll ask a lot of questions. So I'm making some assumptions here. Perhaps the government entity is not the arts partner. And if that's the case, then I'd want to know more about the cultural organization to determine if that would qualify as the arts partner. And if the government entity is the arts partner, I'd still want to know a little bit more about the cultural partner, just to, again, see if they would technically qualify or we would consider them an arts partner. And as I mentioned before, one of the things that we want to keep in mind is the true intent of this program, and it is cross-sector. And so if you feel like there's not really that distinction between who is the arts partner and who is the non-arts partner, we should probably talk, because that is something that will come up when your application is reviewed. Is there an arts partner? Is there a non-arts partner? These two partners, both seem like they're in the same sector. And so if there's any gray area, let's have a conversation and make sure that it's going to meet the eligibility. And even if it technically meets the eligibility, let's make sure that it meets the intent of the program.
Great. And we do have about 10 minutes left and a little over 30 questions left. So we'll try to get to as many of these as possible. If we do not get to your questions, there will be a chance for you to email Nikki afterwards and have any follow-up conversations. This next question, I'm not entirely sure if it makes sense, and this might require some follow-up, but somebody's asking, what is the number required as part of the LOI again, please?
Can you repeat that question? I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. There's a follow-up asking, maybe it's the UEI. What is the number required as part of the LOI again?
So the unique entity identifier is a federal number a number assigned by the federal government, and it is required of all nonprofit organizations that are receiving federal funds. And so you are receiving federal funds if you get a cross-sector impact grant. We re-grant federal funds. It is a number that is given to you free by visiting the federal website, and we have links and information of how to get that number on the cross-sector impact page. It could take as much as 30 days to get. So I would say start early. However, we don't want this to be a barrier for the LOI process. And so while we aren't requiring it for the LOI process, it will be required for the application submission. So you will need to determine whether or not you want to begin the process now for that, knowing that it may take longer or shorter than 30 days, or knowing that you may not be invited for a full application. So it is just a number that they identify with all of their grant funding. And again, I want to discourage any of you from using any type of paid service to get this number. It simply requires a little patience and time, but it's a free number and you should not pay anyone to help you get it quicker or to help you with the process. So it's not due with the LOI. It is due with the application submission, but you will have about 5 weeks from the time that you're notified to submit an application to get the LOI, and it could take 4 weeks or maybe longer. So weigh the pros and cons of when you might want to start getting that question or getting that number.
Great. And I also posted a link in the chat box for everybody to our page about how to obtain a UEI. I would recommend bookmarking that and coming back to it sooner rather than later. We do have a pair of questions asking about the public-facing events. One person is asking if they have to be 2 different events or can the same event be presented twice? And somebody else is asking about the different types of public-facing events that are required, if you could restate those.
Okay, so we require a minimum of 2 public-facing events, and it could be the same event happening twice. So if you were going to have a screening with a discussion and you were going to do that 2 separate times, that qualifies. Or it could be 2 very different events. It could be a screening with a discussion afterwards, and the second event could be, and that would be open and marketed to the general public and accessible to anyone that wants to attend. The second event would have to be, or could be, an educational or community engagement activity that provides deeper understanding of the art form or the arts experience or the project or the social issue. They can be in person or virtual. So I hope I answered both of those questions.
Okay. Somebody's asking if all the partners need to be within the South Arts region, and does the project need to take place within the South Arts states?
So all of the partners, the 2 primary partners and any other partners, should reside or be located in our 9-state region. The project activities should be in our 9-state region. And what I'll say is really what we're looking for is projects built on community engagement. So what we love to see is partners that are in the local community. And while you could engage a partner outside of your state, but within our region, we'd really want to know why. You know, if you're in Florida and you're bringing in a partner from Georgia, you know, we might want to know, is there not a partner in Florida that could do the same thing this Georgia partner is? Because so much of this work, you know, is about building trust and building connections and hopefully continuing those partnerships once the project is over or the funding has ended. And we really see that happening within local communities.
Somebody is asking about partnership agreements. My organization's ongoing artistic endeavor involving film, community outreach, and portraiture is entirely dependent on participation with and access to the military and military bases. Do I still need to attain a formal participation agreement?
I'm not sure I understand exactly that question. If you're asking if within your project, if you're going to engage the military, if we require any type of agreement, that you have any type of agreement with them, we do not. I would say that that is part of your project design, how you interact and how you engage the participants and what type of agreements or understanding you want to have with the participants. That is really part of your program design, but it's not something that we require as part of your grant. What we do ask in the application is, how are you going to engage the participants? How are you going to market the program or promote the program? How are you going to ensure that the people that you want to engage or involved are going to be interested, and how are you going to get them into the project? So those are the questions that we ask. We don't ask about, the maybe a more formal way of how you're planning to engage the participants.
But just as a bit of a follow-up question, we do need to have some formal documentation that the military bases would be a partner within the organization. We cannot simply take it on faith that this is a developed partnership. Is that correct?
Sure. And thanks, Ivan. So the application and LOI process, even though one entity, one partner is taking the primary role of developing that LOI or application, what we are expecting is that you're working collaboratively to partner. And so we ask for information on each partner, and each partner should agree that they are working together. We don't ask for that agreement. It is assumed with the application submission that partner one had some input in the project and is agreeing to commit to this project, and so is partner two. And so we ask very specific information, not just tell us who you're going to partner with, but it really is a collaborative effort with the application, not just the project activities.
Okay.
Let me just, because this happens sometimes, when I have to contact applicants for LOIs and full applications, is that some partners are surprised that they are included in an application, and that is something that you don't want to happen. There should be, even though this is a preliminary phase, the LOI, there should be plenty of conversation between the partners. Both partners should know that they are integral to this project and are being submitted collaboratively with the LOI. So please do not include a partner or someone's name that you have not had hopefully several conversations with.
Thank you. And with that, we are at noon. And so I am going to share the final slide and hand it back to Nikki to close up the conversation.
Thank you. So I know there are a lot of questions, and I want to encourage you to carefully read the guidelines on our website. Also, check out the frequently asked questions. And of course, you can contact me with any additional questions. I will say that after the webinar today, I will be at a conference for most of this week and may be slow to respond, but I will answer every question that comes to my voicemail or to my email. But just want to ask that you first read the materials, because some of the questions may be answered there. And I just want to close with saying that projects from the last 4 years have been very impactful. And we're really proud of this program and the work that all of you are doing in your communities. We look forward to reviewing the submissions for this upcoming year. And we just want to thank you for joining us today, and good luck with your submissions.
Thank you, everybody.